Hello, everyone. Hello. Welcome to the stream. We are going to be continuing our game development today, but before we do, we are going to check in with the kitties. You have Ember in Sky snuggled up across the keyboard. The camera just blanked out for a moment, but it's back. Sit up a little straighter and get a little closer to the microphone. There we go. Sammy is deciding if she wants to lay down. I think that's Mason's tail there. Now see, Nightbot jumps into both YouTube channels. That's useful. Might have to use Nightbot for some of this stuff. It's just... Nightbot's a hassle to set up since you have to set up a different one for Twitch too. I wish there was a unified setup. But at any event... we have Sammy. We have another one lurking near the cat tree. I can't tell if it's Mason or Sherbet. But yes, hello everyone. Hello. How are we doing? We're gonna be doing our game dev today. Since last time. Last time we got world generation rolling. It is set up to load tiles as we go. These red boundaries are the edges of adjacent world tiles. This red one in the center is, the center of a world tile. Then we've also got movement working. I've reset its movement down to about 1 tile per second. Hey there, We're doing good, King. We're doing good, King. We're doing good. I've also put one blob explicitly in there. I've got it with a behavior of just to move directly towards the player at all times. This is pretty much going to be the default behavior. They can bump into you. Right now it does nothing, but they can. Since it's not a hard collision between the two of them, they just detect it. It will stop them, but the player can push through them. We'll see how it reacts with multiple. In theory, I should be able to test that right now. I'll take another one, just paste it in like so. Where it ended up. Let's reload that scene. It's not moving. Why is it not moving? Where's our script? But yes, we are going to be moving along here. Is it in game logic that I'm moving the critters? Yeah, that's why. That's why. I could tell the critters about the player. And if I tell the critters about the player, then they can pursue it on their own without the game having to tell them to do it. I think we'll do that in just a moment. This being the problem. Because this is Mob 2, not Mob 1, and it only moves Mob 1. So Mob 2 bounces, and, oh, interesting, it doesn't collide at all. Why not? It's very weird. It should be a mob object. It should collide with the player. Maybe because it's not moving. Maybe because it doesn't move. But yes, we are doing some game development. If you are joining us on a one of the mobile platforms, I apologize if it can be hard to see the screen. It's going to be a lot of text. But if you are on desktop or similar and would like to see more of it, you can. There are 2 broadcasts on widescreen format, both on YouTube and on Twitch. This is going to be commentary heavy and typing heavy and similar. There will be stuff to look at now and again as I switch over and activate the game screen. There will always be cats to look at, of course. But otherwise, just let me know if you have any questions or want to chat or anything. I do have plenty of time. Just give me a moment to notice the text. All right. So here's part of our problem is during world processing, we are filling in world tiles. Just get rid of this comment. We don't need it anymore. But then we're explicitly moving the mob object. And I don't think we can do that. At least I don't think we should do that. So if instead we go into a mob, this, and if we export player object, then we can go into the game. Stop this for now. We have mob 2. So first we go to the player object in game world, go to player, and that should have, sorry, we go to mob and mob 2. There should be a player target now. Yep. So if we drag that to you, go ahead and grab that to you. I think we're back. Let's find out. There's some buffering going on. Hey there, Tass. We're potentially having some technical difficulties. I'm not sure if it's working for you. If it is, let me know. Had an OBS crash and I'm attempting to recover. I know, right? Oh, you can hear me, so that's a good sign. Okay, both mobs are no longer moving. That's right. Good. So what we're doing... Let's do this. Like that. We'll do an intermediate. Should be working now. I get them to overlap with each other. Let's find out. Okay. Now, if we go into the mob object, enemy, and it'll check for collisions with enemies. Nice, nice. So now they can't overlap with each other. Now what I can also do is make it so a collision with another mob object will make them slide to try to move towards their target. But for the time being, we've got the basic movement in. So that's good. Alt tab there. Okay, so we have the critters moving. So they constantly redirect themselves accordingly. And we need to update, we need to update movement direction because that is tied into animation. So you can see if they change facing, it'll flip the sprite. Hey there, T. The letter T. Welcome, welcome. We're doing some coding. We're trying to do some game dev. And we've got our mob sprite. That's for animation. Okay, go back into the game. It's a fun little scripting language, GD script there, Sunfish. Okay, so now we have multiple, we just need to supply them with a player object. Now we need to instantiate them. Instantiate them, then give them a player object. What if we add just a node, plain old node? We're going to call it a spawner. And we're going to go in and we're going to attach a script to the spawner. Seconds. How you doing, Sunfish? Seconds past shouldn't be a... we're making a little game. We're making a little game. We're working on getting the little blue blobs to spawn here at the moment. Blue blobs are a placeholder, but yeah, they're cute. They're a cute placeholder. We're trying to make like a Vampire Survivors kind of thing, but right now we're just getting the shell. We're learning to do GD script as we go along. What we're going to be coding shortly. Let me put seconds past as okay. Yeah, we properly did a float, so let's do a float. Then at each process stage, so we do seconds past. So add the delta. Let me do the player to do this right. There we go. Yeah. Let's use that same thing. Gonna have to encapsulate it. Like that one capitalized it. Why it capitalize? Detach that one. Move that. We are going to. What do you do? Save that as a scene. Should be a node under the game. Okay, so that's should be within the game folder, so it should fall in this tree. Be under game, and then it will be in spawner. That. So now we have a spawner object, and we open up the spawner entity. Open up the spawner entity. Okay. Now there we go. That's what happened. There we go. There we go. Hello, Sherbet. Hello. Sherbet has come up to my headrest for scratches here, so we'll give him some attention. Okay. We have number of seconds passed. We're going to say this. Now we need to have. We're putting that past there so that it shuts up for a moment. That can't be there, but it's going to be there for now. Let's see. What is it called? It's not self that we want. Tree that we use for this. Get tree. We'll look this up. Oh, hey there, Crush Star. We'll look this up in a moment here. Let me see if I can. So what we want to do here is so we're going to crop 2 off of it each time, and every 2 seconds we're going to spawn a blob. How you doing, Crush Star? Joining us for some rudimentary rookie game development here. So we're going to make Spawner the owner of all the blobs, and every 2 seconds it's going to make a blob. That's not how it's actually going to work. We're going to set... We're potentially going to have multiple spawners, but what we'll do is create a system for instantiating different types of mobs and behaviors thereof, and then feeding them into spawners with different behaviors. Real quickly, though, I do have to step away just a moment. I deal with something. Just a moment. Sorry about that. Resettling, and then we'll continue. There we go. There we go. Okay. Which cam are we tracking? Looks like we were probably tracking camera 1, and camera 1 is flaky, so... Okay. We need to instantiate a child object here. So, some truths about Godot here. We jump over to core, and we open up the visibility here. So we have a game object. Everything's a tree in Godot. Everything's a tree. So the actual game itself driving the difference between the main menu and the actual game. These emit messages to say, like, hey, close me, open this, that kind of thing. And within the game, we have an in-game menu we're not using. We have the floor grid. We have our sample blob. We have our player object. The camera is attached to the player. It follows it around. So then we have this spawner. And I feel like it's plausible to have the spawner accept a player object. It should also probably accept a mob object to duplicate. I mean, hypothetically, there's probably a limit as far as memory. And there's also a practical limit as far as how many it's relevant to have in existence at any given time. Like, if we can fill the screen with blobs, we probably have enough blobs. So, just for example, if we do something like, oh, how many is it? 274 blobs, I believe. That's probably as many as we need. This is the number of tiles on the screen. Feels like there should be less than that. But it's about 21 across and 13 tall, so that feels about right. Yeah. Okay, so if we go into the script for spawner, and we're going to export a player object, and then we're also going to export a mob to spawn a mob object. This might change, but I feel like where is it? Identifier in body. Just gonna call it a spawner while we're at it. But why is... Make sure we have exports already. Class name player export. Oh. Bar. There. There we go. So this is a loosely typed language. It's whatever you set into it is what it treats it as, more or less. But it's kind of an unknown thing. You have to know how to work with it unless you explicitly tell it it's one of these. So by telling this variable that it is of type mob, it will treat it as this and it will only accept that. Which means it'll error out if you try to give it something that is not that, which I want that to happen. If I want it to not error out on it being a mob, I'll say it'll error out on being like a node 2D, or I'm sorry, I should make it a node 2D or a node, such that I don't really care as long as it's one of these upper types. Just like I don't want them putting a decimal value in spawn interval seconds. Do that. Now, how do we add a child? Let's see. I thought it was get tree. Once we have the tree, We're going to have to add them to a group. But for now, I'm doing a quick check to see if I can intuit what we're supposed to use, and then I'll look it up. As I've said before, you don't want to be ashamed for looking stuff up, but at the same time, you should actually, make the effort to understand what you're doing. I don't see anything obvious here. So, a moment. Do. Searching. Let's see here. What can we find? Get tree, get root, get node, add child. Okay, we need to get a node. Okay, let's see what we can do here. Just for a test. Node is equal to, let's put self here. Now, in theory, this might explode. It does not. It does not. Okay. We're off to a good start. That means self is a node. It was add child, but all right, let's just do what we're doing here. Get tree, get root, get node. Does that explode? Doesn't explode. Wonder if we can do mob to spawn. Let's remove from the game scene our basic mob here. Get root. No, it won't. That's going to put it in core. Right? It's not doing anything there. Okay. We should be seeing it here if it were doing that. And we're not seeing it show up as a child under the spawner. Yeah, we don't want the root viewport of the scene. Actually, no. It's not really what we want to know. Help us, Reddit. Okay, we should be able to use self. Let's just make sure that it executes that. Let's add child do. Would just instantiate. We need to create a node from a scene. So you can get node by name. I don't want to do that. Node path isn't what we want. Okay, okay. But will this work? Let's find out. Oh, okay, okay. So then we have to go into game. We need to add spawner object. We need to take. We would have to instantiate it. Because we know we can do this. It's an instantiated node. We can put it there. But this is just a scene. For the time being, let's just go in and put it as a... We'll leave that alone for now. We'll say mob.new. Okay, didn't like something. It's in the mob. let's clear that out, and we're going to go into game script. And during ready, so we get the player, and we're going to get a spawner object too. $sign spawner dot player target is equal to player. Still didn't like it. So at creation, spawner doesn't have player target. What about null? Does it recognize null? Target. Is all this null? Oh, okay. No. I get it. I get it. Okay, so in the spawner, new mob as mob. New mob.new. Player target. Then I don't know why it doesn't default over to this, but you know, it's probably because it was technically on that. 0. So not even the mob sprite is loaded. I feel like we might need to make a new type of object for this. I believe we should be able to use resources, which, from what I could find initially, could include a code object that is fully defined. So a scene could be okay, let's try this. Reload instantiate. I'll have to come up with something else for what to target and how to do it. We get away with this. Yes, we can. Nice. In the mob, that got us this far. Hey there, Newt. Wait, that's me. TSS. Your sentence confused me. Your very unconfusing sentence confused me. I know, right, Tass? Just blew a fuse immediately. Okay. Oh. All right, let's... We're gonna keep that commented in case we need it. Let's actually test what I did. Hey there, maybe. Hey, what went wrong this time? Okay, null instance. Oh, explosion is a definite possibility at all times here. Oh, look at it go. Okay, that's going way too fast. Why is it doing that so fast? Oh, 2. We're trying to make a Vampire Survivor style thing, maybe. All right, we gotta... Okay. What we're going to do is we're going to move that break to here. It never happens. That's the idea, maybe. That's the idea. I'm getting more use out of the old catbots. Okay, we're never getting here. Oh. Yeah, it'll never get there. It'll never get there. Because it chops it down every time. Second slices is greater than 0. Do a thing. Okay, I mean, that's not what we wanted it to do, but it's kind of doing the thing. It's kind of doing the thing. But look, they actually follow. They try to follow. Look at them go. So many little blobs. Oh, dear. Okay. And the blobs exist outside. All right, let's do that again. Oh, wow. Those little guys got yeeted off the top of the screen. All right, so we go back over here. We go to our game scene. They're not spawning here. We go to our core. They're not spawning here. Where are they at? Oh. Do. Oh, we still want to do that. Yeah, that'll be immediately following once we get like universal mob spawning done. Uh then inevitably number of mobs on screen is going to be the next thing. Interval in seconds, then ew. Right now, they just infinitely spawn one every 2 seconds. Next, I'll need some plugins for how they move and how they'll spawn. Like what position to spawn them at. Okay, so we have a mob spawner. I don't like that they're appearing on screen like this, though. Too bad I can't see inside this object. Okay. When this thing gets hidden, I'm gonna need to change its behavior too. This isn't the way that you're supposed to do it, but right now in core, when we pause, we go in and say, we negate everything. Which should result in these, but it's weird that this is surviving. Like, why did the blobs still show up? Because they should be children of the spawner, which should be children of game. But it's also possible that they're being added somewhere that I can't see. We're gonna explicitly add another node. Just gonna call him test for now. Because right now what you can see, everything else about the game scene has been hidden and is not functioning, or is not supposed to function. But this thing is still going to process despite that. So it hasn't started yet. It's not supposed to have started yet. It's already started. Yeah. That shouldn't even be processing. All right, we're missing something. Which animation, Tass? Oh, yeah. I mean, ideally, they don't spawn on top of each other. I'll have to get some sort of logic for fixing that, so that it will bump something out of the way before it spawns them, because otherwise they get kind of stuck. I think the problem might be that we're instantiating the scene. Regardless, here, let's go into the game. Come in and we go into core. Because as soon as it's ready, we disable game screen. But now that we know how to do this, what we might be able to start doing is instantiating the subscenes. Is create a main menu, create a game screen. That would also let us reset the game, essentially. Because part of our problem is that the spawner is active. Like, as soon as it exists, it's active. Its processing is supposed to stop, but all this is accomplishing is interrupting the processing of, I think, the target scene. So, like, the game object, its processing stops, but nothing else. So if instead, if we let's don't do anything, what we'll do is this will make a bunch of errors for us. It should complain that these don't exist, but apparently it's not going to. A self dot Let's go back into game decor, I should say. View. It's going to do a quick test, make sure this continues to cause the same problems that it was causing. Okay. Blobs are still spawning where we don't want them to. Okay. Come at you. We're going to show a menu object, so we need to reload and instantiate it. Rid of these. So we've learned something. We're going to dynamically instantiate and remove things. This is what I wanted Core to do in the first place. Reload a main menu. We're going to keep those, actually. Say main menu as... Hey there, creepy. Welcome. Welcome. We are... We've got mob spawning. Mob spawning is working. I'm sorry, is happening. We're moving on from there. Okay, so this isn't going to work the way I want it to, but it should be a start. So you see how it's clicky like this. So we are instantiating a main menu. And the main menu will probably have to wire up the event. I don't know how we'll do that, but we're getting there. I'm going to regret doing this, but, you know, you only live once. Remove child. Let's try. Yes. All right. Internet. How to destroy an object. That's not useful. You free. Okay. Hello there. Welcome back, Sakura. That. We're going to remove the child, and then we're going to kill it. if instead we do this? Oh, okay. Okay, I get it. Like so. Yeah, it's in use. Okay. That's perfectly all right, Sakura. We all have things going on. You do what you need to do in your own life and worry about watching a stream after. Okay. Just prepping some shells here. Go. Go to the main menu. Yep, that's Sherbet. He is he's snoozing on the side of the desk. Okay. Game screen. Great game screen. I'm gonna switch the order of that. It should happen effectively instantly, but using signals. So we can manually connect them. Yup, yup. Via code. Okay, here we go. Here we go. So we get the node. Okay. The object, its event, and then connect. Sherbet's a cutie. I suspect they named him Sherbet after the one of the kind of classics like Dreamsicle, the the orange and cream flavor or combination thereof. Though he's more tan than orange, you know. Okay. So if we go into main menu script, call it a main menu, go into game, its script, it is a game. So then if we go into core again, that is a main main menu. You are a game. He is. He's kind of a tan brown color. He's a little sweetheart. I wonder who else we can see right now. Let's do a quick cat check. Okay, so we have Sherbet, of course. I think tan is a kind of brown. I find it more brown than orange. Though often orange and brown are kind of in the same kind of HSV kind of territory. We got Ember, we got Mason, we got all five. Well, there we go. Crush stars with the more complete answer. And we got Sky, we got Sherbet, we got Ember, we've got Mason, and we've got Sammy. All of them are present. That again. In menu, timeout. Okay, so the object, its event, connect, the function. Let's just look at the code and find out what the signal is. Start game. That's what it is. Connect to on main menu, start game. Exit game. Connect. Connect on main menu, exit game. Okay. wonder, do we have to disconnect? Okay, yeah, we're gonna... We're gonna be sure here. We're gonna be sure. We are... For this, we have to make sure we're passing the function reference, not calling the function. I'm going to put that here. Order game screens events. Exit game. On game, exit game. Disconnect it here. Just so. Okay, okay. Testing. Okay, well, we got an exit. We got exit. Oh, 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 oh. Boop. And boop. Ah. Do-de-do. Victory from me. See? It resets. Right now, the player is twice as fast as a blob. The blobs will never catch you. Unless you let them. What you confused about, Sakura? Okay, okay, okay. Yes. So now we can use that same logic inside of the game object to do things like instantiate the player and the spawner. Oh, what am I coding? We're making a game. It's going to be kind of like Vampire Survivors. That's the goal, at least. Right now, yesterday, we got all these tiles to spawn in programmatically. So as I walk up, more of these tile patterns appear. Initially, like, you only have so many of them, but as soon as you start moving, more of them get drawn in. I don't know what the upward cost to memory is to keep adding them in. Eventually, we'll probably start deleting them. Oh, the little blobs right now are placeholder enemies. They're going to be things that try to get you, you know? I do like how their animations are a bit offset from each other. That's a unintended benefit. Previously, we did have a bug that was making it so that the blobs would appear regardless of whether a scene was present. We are going to have to get a mechanism for pausing in place that will stop the spawner. And we'll eventually need logic that will prevent them from spawning entirely. As well as probably logic to make the spawners have different, like, movement patterns. So, like, instead of spawning from origin, they're spawning at 0, 0. Have them spawn somewhere, like around the edge of the screen kind of thing. There is something in a tutorial about creating a roaming point in the world. So I should probably be able to use that same logic in creating a moving path and spawning them around it. I don't need to worry about the facing of the path necessarily, but the trick is not everything will need that kind of logic. So we can see some of the blobs are starting to get stuck on each other. And then they start doing something crazy like that. We can definitely do, some time ago, I did create some maze generation logic. It's nothing new. It's, it's code that people have done before. But I made maze generation logic that I could port over to GDScript easy enough. And it could make that. But, we're getting there. We're learning stuff. We're learning some stuff. But we can start over. This is a stupidly large leap forward for our code here. By doing it this way, I don't think we need to worry about a memory leak here, because we are unloading the object. Ideally, it will unload all of its children. We'll have to see how that works. I'll have to, check numbers in the background. I'd rather not have to go in and manually unload all of the blobs every time, Okay. Well, now we have logic in core that is the basis for, like, loading up a scene, removing it, which I'll be able to use inside of the game later for, like, loading up the in-game menu, changing levels, that kind of thing. I could instantiate more spawners. So the trick will be, can I make versions of mob that do not require me to individually code them? Like, can I make a template out of the mob object and go in and say, here's your sprite, here's your behavior, that kind of thing. Because then each spawner for them could handle that. I'll have to look that up. I know I saw a discussion on how to do that, but I don't know that it will actually work for me. So for the time being, I'll make sub mobs here that are still mob objects. They extend mob, but they will pre-configure some of their values. Yeah, I don't like the idea of having all of the creatures like pre-configured inside of code, but I don't know that that really matters. It's a node 2D, and it is a blob. Blob. What's your super random thought? Attach a script to that, and it's the blob script. But it's going to extends mob. I mean, nesting doll creatures, I think, is going to be something. The general theme will initially be, it'll be an escalation. It's kind of like, games like Grand Theft Auto. You know how you have the star level, the wanted level on them? The game's going to kind of operate like that, in that there will be a visual escalation to a fixed endpoint. Like, you get this far and it will start over. Like, it'll start out with no enemies and a sort of invasion mechanic, and it will culminate in things like tanks. And then eventually you get nuked and it starts over. So if I go into blob here in its code, blob has a movement direction into player target. And what I'll also want to do is expose its sprite, because the mob object itself should handle that. As long as I'm consistent about how sprites are structured, then I should be able to get away with this. Go into a mob, and it has a target, it has movement. We're going to export. No, I don't think. Okay. It has a sprite. If I look at a mob, it has a sprite object already. Because I could encapsulate this concept here. The collision rectangle and its sprite are the things that vary. So since I'm predefining it, I'm not going to programmatically define it. What I'll do is I'll take this and load that in there, right? No, that won't work. Let's look at the blob in 2D space. I was hoping it would actually have the physical objects of a blob, of the base mob, which has this sprite. Oh, but it doesn't. It's that's not the way it works. That's not the way it works, because all I've done is said the code, like right here, this code extends the code in mob. It doesn't extend the object tree. Okay, so we're still going to need a pattern for this. We're still going to need a pattern for this. What we want is the ability to go in and define various of these. Blob is a mob. Okay, but that just made it have the same script. So, Crush Stars, the setting of the game is going to be in the setting of the of my lore. I do have some short form things that I used prior to the debut to describe that, but effectively, things are going to start as sort of like a new product shipment, and it will eventually escalate. No. Wait. If blob is a type of mob, let's try this again. Mob is a type of character 2D, so we take that, and it's a blob is a mob now. So inside blob, we should be able to look at things like sprite. Okay. So we could then go in and say mob sprite dot texture. What does the texture? What properties? We could do a set texture. But let's look at Sprite 2D a moment. So it has a texture value. Which has a load path, but that's to a texture and its resource. Be load path, right? If we look in 2D, still not visible. Preload is for loading a scene, right? Oh, okay. It'll give me a resource. All right. Well, thanks for joining us, Crush Stars. Hope you had a good time. So ultimately, one of the things we should be able to do is create a resource from a subscene, like fully define the subscene and then create a resource from it. And then we'll have like a copy of them. But this doesn't seem to be working how I want it to. So if I go into Spawner, we don't need the test object anymore. And instead of this resource, instead of the mob scene, we're going to use the blob scene. And we try that. We get a problem. Okay, we can't set it to texture. Or if we can get away with this. The answer is no. Because we'll get compressed texture in this case. Yeah. So this is nil. What about mob sprite? Is null. Okay. So nothing about the mob object is instantiated in this case. So we're going to need to populate everything about it when we do this. Okay. Okay, let's see what we can get away with here. Export. At export. Can I do that? So in blob, when I create a blob, I need to set what its sprite to use is. Okay, that's going to be roundabout as all get out there. That doesn't seem like the way I want to go. Got to be a way to do what we're thinking of here, or at least what I'm thinking of. I want to be able to go in and say, this is what defines this entity. Use this resource. What if... Okay, so a lot of what defines, like right now... Well, no, mob defines all of this stuff. Yeah, I'm trying to lay out a rational hierarchy of objects and how to do it. And I'm doing it on the fly. Like, you know, I haven't sat down and plotted this out. What if blob extends mob, but blob contains mob? Can do that? Like its sprite 2D doesn't exist. Which is weird. Because if I go into mob, like this part, this encapsulated tree contains all of this stuff with these settings. But if I take that same encapsulated tree and put it here, it doesn't. So why? Because what I want to be able to do at least partly a scope problem. It's also partly understanding how the layers of scope work in this, like which things are actually being inherited, because it looks like all of the children of mob are not coming with it. Like, everything about these children are not coming with it. So if I put this in a scene by itself, it works. What if... What if blob is not a mob? What is it if it's just a node 2D? Okay, and what if it then contains a mob? Now, there's something about this. It's not functioning. Because when I put the mob in another scene, you know, I go into the game scene, into this spawner, and it instantiates a mob, then that works. But if I make the mob an explicit child of another scene, it's not working. Just one moment. I'll be right back. Just about back. Obtaining water. Gotta hydrate and all that. So what we want to be able to do is take take the mob as it stands and make a custom version of it and store that off. So that I could then go through and have all kinds of them without having to copy a lot of the base scripts. So if I look at the mob object, I want to be able to change the shape of the collision. I want to be able to change the sprite, potentially its animation, and then I want to be able to potentially change it so that it doesn't swoop towards the target, like towards the player. Maybe it just flies in a straight line kind of thing. So even animate could be different here. Now, I could create subscenes that handle some of this, but that still leaves me with the problem of setting the sprite. The interface for them exists like right here. So right over here, the inspector. Oh, we're missing a cat. There we go. I'm being slowly toasted by Ember at the moment. So, like, I'm assigning this programmatically. So whenever the spawner, like, the spawner makes a blob, well, makes a mob. Let's put this back how it was for the time being. So it makes a mob object. It says, here's your player target and here's your position. Because if I look at the mob scene here, where is it? Yeah. Inside of that mob, I've exposed these two properties, so I can set those. But the sprite within it doesn't radiate it up. I could daisy chain them down, but yeah, this is an intermediary. I need to be able to set that. Oh. Not really. Not really. There isn't like an interface layer. The closest you can get to, so you have single instance class inheritance, and then you also have, to get interface, you're looking at kind of like it's more of like a plugin, you know? You can create an object that represents the entirety of the function. So you don't really implement an interface, but I could like graft an object on to encapsulate functionality, but that still leaves me with the idea of having access to set them. So, you know, this is what it's called. This is its parent class. These are the extra variables it exposes. I don't know. Let's take a look. At sprite. No, it's not mob sprite. It's we'll take that one. And then let's just go into our, for the time being, for a quick test, we're going to put a blob in the scene here. It should exist as a blob, but it doesn't exist as a blob, huh? That's going to be one of the things we need to use. It's effectively a node 2D. Why isn't it showing up? Exists in the class hierarchy. I remove this. Nope. Ah, that might be it. That might be it. Save that explicit file. And we go back to core. No, it still doesn't exist. Yeah, it should live in this hierarchy. In the left side here, this is the folder structure. That doesn't really influence anything beyond where it's saved. It's organizational. Extends node 2D. It is a node 2D. Oh. About that. There it is. Okay, so it has to have a class name for it to be instantiated as an instance like that. Okay, so now we're going to take... We're going to temporarily disable the spawner. Hey, Lunar! We've got creatures spawning. Now we're trying to look at our structure a little bit to see if we can start to instantiate different types of creature and start influencing their behaviors. Right now, what we've got is something that, you know, spawns and follows us in a straight line, can bump into us, bumps into other stuff. Eventually, we'll start to have problems spawning on top of other things because I don't have, like, a spawn protection logic. What we're facing right now is trying to get it so that the appearance of the mob is something that we can set using data, you know? Like, load it up and say, there is such a creature as this that has this texture, it has this behavior set, that kind of thing. Even if it was a file I had to parse, I want to be able to do that at runtime. And trying to figure out how we do that. Even if I use a mob, even if I use this object, how do I go in and set this and set this? That becomes the question. Yeah, I mean, can I override with the exact same name? Okay, let's try that. Let's try that. So we go into blob and we say blob is a mob. Okay, and then mob sprite and mob collision. Okay, so it has something of the exact same name. And then in the mob sprite, there's something we can do to, you know what? We're going to flip it vertical, right? Yeah. So then in the spawner, we tell it to use a blob instead of a mob. Oh. Stop that and restart it. Look at blob. Player target should be a player. And in spawner, we say player target is equal to a player target. It doesn't like this. Okay, blob is not exposing player target. And player target is... Wait. There we go. Mob. Okay. We can't hard override, like we can't override a member. To reload. Okay, we can override the class members. It is not animating. Because this is not the... Now, it's still doing its movement logic. The movement logic is working, but the animation is not. If... Haha! They are. They're explicitly upside down. Not that they're always going to be upside down. It's that I did that so that we could tell the difference between a mob and a blob. So it's upside down because if we look at blob, its sprite has flip vertical. If I were to, so if I do flip vertical, and then I go into spawner where it says preload a blob, I could do the same thing again. And I could do mob. Okay, we're going to call this one new blob. Okay, we're going to load one of each. This one will be at 10 minus 10. This one will be at, I'm sorry, this one will be at 96. 96. Two, I think. Oh, so just a moment. Look at the floor. It's supposed to be 96, actually. It's 3. No, it's 96. 96. Yes. Yes. So then if we look at the two of them, so right now blobs are upside down. Again, this is not a real thing that I plan to have in the game. It's just for demonstration purposes. We have overridden the sprite of the mob. Next thing to do is encapsulate the animation and movement logic. So right now, let's take a look at this. Close all these for a moment. So if we look inside mob, bring up the mob object too. So it has a sprite, which is the bouncing blob. It is by default not flipped around. It also has a collision box, which if we look at it, it looks like this. So the collision is this square tied around it. The sprite is the bouncing blob. 6 frames wide, 1 frame tall. All that goodness. And it's moved up to be zeroed here. All of this is something that's custom to it. So overriding this sprite, I think, is fine. Same with the collision. Manual override of that, I think, is fine. You have to get in there and fiddle with it. But if we go into our scripting, this is something that I want to have overridable. Because this could be different. There could be something that has no facing. It doesn't need this facing logic. It might animate at a different pace, or it might have different animations. Like the player has different animations. Physics, movement, speed, all of that. I could make plugins for that. So I could have an object that essentially just lives to be a script, and Mob would have that plugged in and say, hey, my movement script tells me to move and animate in this way. Then inside the blob, I would say, okay, I'm going to override your movement script with something else of the same name. So just like Mob Sprite is of the same name. So when you get that and call it, it will be something different. The reason in Blob that I had to not override these, you can override functions. So underscore ready is already an override. Its presence there. We just say do nothing in our instance of it. So we're going to leave mob to do its own thing, which is the animation. Okay, so let's... What we want to do then is have our first objects. Think how we want to maneuver this. So this is what I was mentioning earlier. So what we're going to have is we're going to have entities, essentially scenes, nodes. Some of them will have no visual element, but there's no difference between a visual and a non-visual element. That their whole purpose will be to expose functions in behavior that say, like, hey, here is the entity, set up its movement. So, like, this chunk here for animating the sprite, the object that handles sprite animation would take the sprite and it would manipulate the sprite accordingly. So its process delta would handle all that for us. All we need to do is inside the object say, here's my sprite. And then additionally, you could have something that says, okay, well, and you do this, it's facing, with the assumption that movement direction exists because all mobs have movement direction. Then we could have something in here that would say, okay, give me your player object and give me your yourself, so I can get like velocity and whatnot. Or I'm sorry, it's going to know where its position is. It might need to have its own entity, but we could try that. So it would look and say, okay, what's my position? There's the player. This is the direction to the player. Move by my speed value. And the... There is a point where things get convoluted, but what I'm trying to do is essentially abstract that away, where we don't care that this is the movement. What we care about is that it has a blob movement object. It's like, here's blob movement. Or here's tracking movement. And all tracking movement cares about is that it's socketed in, and it has a target. It has a position, a target, and a speed. given those values, it's then going to home in on whatever its target is. Just, it doesn't care, it moves straight towards the target. So if I have a... you cannot extend multiple classes. You only get the one. Which, I mean, isn't a terrible thing. It's a shame that we don't get, like, the interface thing where we can stack interfaces. But the thing I'm describing is kind of the workaround for that. Is I can give you any number of doodads for you to interact with. And if I expose them in a uniform way, it can kind of pantomime as an interface. You know, we could check if the get movement object method exists, and if it does, then it has a movement object, you know? Or we could query the object and say, do you have a movement object node? If you have a movement object node, then you can move. Which would be the equivalent of us asking, you know, is it an instance of for an interface? Song and dance, dodging around it, but okay, we have a mechanism for doing so now. Okay. We have mobs, we have players, we have spawners. One of the things I don't like right now is having this. What I'll probably do is have a variable passed in for this. I might have to use a different method accordingly. Let's do a test. We're going to set it in the function. X, which is string. Which is a string spelled like string. Copy. Fat fingering everything today. Yes, okay. Preload has to have a constant string. I'm guessing at the compile time, it's going to swap this out. We use, instead of preload, use load. Well, I guess that makes sense. Okay, that still works. Messier. But what it means is that I don't have to do this. I'd want to be able to move the resources around, but I think this is inevitably going to be a problem. At some point. We'll see how far we get. Okay, if we create... Not really a behavior. They're effectively submodules, but... another way to look at this would be things like it has health. You know, effectively it can be harmed. And so you could look at it and say, you know, do you have a can be harmed? If you do, then when this thing touches you, it'll call harm. It'll get your harmable and it will call harm on it. Kind of stuff. So there's some assumptions going on in this, and we'll have to build that in. Okay, so we have a mechanism for creating variations of mob. What we'll end up doing is instead of having the explicit blob folder at this tier, we'll have a, individual mobs folder so that it can keep things cleaner. Otherwise, the root mob folder is going to get messier. Maybe I'll make like an enemies and an objects and whatnot. Though fixed objects are not mobs. They're kind of mobs, but they're fundamentally not because they don't move. Which is funny when you think about it. There are types of things that we would refer to as mobs in games, that aren't mobs because they don't move. It's one of those acronyms that has ceased to be an acronym and is now a word by itself. It's kind of like a proc, A proc is a proc. It's not really a procedure. Lip tracking needs more work again. It's being flaky. That'll help. Change the camera angle. Processing. So we'll keep it in behaviors for now. We'll have to fix this later. We go in. Go in here. Create a new scene, and it's just a node. And this is going to be tracking movement. We attach a script to it. Having all these spaces and names isn't necessarily great, but I'm allowed to. I frankly find it more readable right now. And the code that interacts with the names doesn't care. So we're using spaces. Okay, so tracking movement. It would be... Ooh, tricky. How would we do this? Yeah, we're starting to get into hierarchy territory. Because players in mobs both have positions. Like, they have a spatial thing. I could pass something else into it that defines that it has a position. But it needs to be something that gets passed back. Is this a by reference? Is GD script by reference or purely by instance? Like, you know, if I set a variable equal to a class member and I mess with that variable, am I also messing with the class member at the same time? Let's find out. If we go into mob has a velocity. What is velocity? I think it's a vector 2. Pretty sure it's a vector 2. Let's pretend it's a vector 2. Or you'd say it's a character body 2D, then that should work. Yeah, let's do it as that. Bar character body 2D. Yeah, we'll be more explicit. Body to move, body to track. Classy. Wish there was a faster way to remove all of these. We are dealing with YouTube's very lax naming policy a moment, folks. Oh, hey, they got a new one. There we go. Boop. There we go. Character body 2D. Okay, so then we can set that. And what this will do is it'll set a direction. Read it as an int. We're going to do 48 by default, just for tracking purposes. Okay. then I go into mob. I'm going to add a movement direction. Mob. So I'm moving the blob's movement logic from the blob itself, or the mob itself, or at least I'm moving this logic into a new location that I will then reference directly in it. We're gonna have to make an encapsulating object to tracking movement, but we'll get there. This needs to be a node 2D. Oh, no, it doesn't. Physics underscore. Come on, underscore. Using a character body 2D. Oh, character body 2D only has move and slide. Where does this live? Physics body 2D. Okay. Work. Then in the mob, we're going to We need tracking movement, so we have movement is going to be should be able to do that. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. In ready, we'll say instantiate. Okay, so what should happen here is we say movement is this, and then what's it called? Body move is equal to self. Body track is equal to player target. And then the tracking movements code. Set its speed. Say speed. All right, and then go into mob, and instead of movement direction, we're going to look at our velocity. And in physics process, we are going to just comment this whole thing. Oh, that's right. Okay, it should be a tracking movement. Body to move, track, and speed. And it has a physics process. Does it need to be like a Node 2D? Physics process is part of what? Part of a node. So why isn't physics process being called? Sprite preloads a new movement type. Okay. Okay. So then we go into tracking movement. But it's never getting there. Every one of these should be processed in this fashion. Checking something here. Okay, well, we're still going. We're still going. Good to know. Good to know. Okie dokie. Let's see. Why aren't they calling it their physics process function? All right, just as a test. Still no. Doesn't seem to matter. Oh. Okay, okay. Yeah. So what we're going to do is right now we're just setting it to a member variable. Which is okay. but it actually needs to be part of the node. So there. Okay, didn't like something. Oh, no, no. Aha. Okay, we have encapsulated movement inside of a separate entity, which means we are able to create alternate instances, or we would be able to supply a known entity to it and say, here, use this. So now we have made it so that a mob can have different movement types. So we could override it in blob. So if I go into blob, 50. Okay. In mob, we can take our ready function. I don't like messing with this. But we're getting closer. We're getting closer. Like, I want to leave this as is. I don't want to have the overrides all remember to keep this as they are. This is the overridable part. Yeah, I need to put something different in movement. Oh, okay, I think we can do this. So if in a mob, by default, it has a tracking movement. And we're going to rename it to movement. In movement, we have sky. How do we want to do this? Okay. Movement is equal to okay, so the tricky part now is that... No, we don't. I have to configure movement. Like, movement needs these. And one of the things that it needs is passed into the mob. So the mob has to relay it. Which it's contained here. It needs to get into the movement object, which means I need a direct assignment. And I don't have a node to point it to directly and say that's the one. Call a function which has stuff there, so we don't need this anymore. So then in theory, if I go into blob, I have function configure movement. And add my own called movement. And I'll go into mob, do this. And we're going to make it half as fast. Okay, next thing would be to add some different movement types so that we could see that. Ooh, oh no, we have a good way to see that. The blobs are moving away from me, the mobs are moving towards me. And there's definitely some hack job going on here, but I think we've made some good progress today. So that's where we're going to stop for the evening. Oh, wow. Sky is snuggled up with Sherbet. This is where we're going to stop for the evening. We've got the general idea of mob spawning working, and we have the beginnings of a rickety framework for instantiating different types of mobs. I don't know that I 100% like it, but I think we're good as we are for the time being. As in, we can operate with this. We can create different types of movement entity. We'll create a overarching movement entity so that the core mob just wants a movement object, not a tracking movement object. It's that the individual entities will say, oh, my movement object is one of these, and it's named movement kind of thing. And then we'll interact with it accordingly. So we'll have movement, we'll have their appearance, their animation and movement, their appearance, all of that will be able to be encapsulated. And then we can start adding things like behaviors, like what they do when they collide. You know, do they pop and go away? What happens when they get too far away? That kind of thing. We can start adding that sort of thing in there. But we'll see. I do hope everybody had a good time today, despite the 2 people that decided that they needed to come in and spam. And despite the fact that YouTube doesn't track special character names properly. So if you did like what you see and would like to see more, remember to like, follow, subscribe, and comment. All those things are good for the algorithm to show it what you want to see so that it can show you more like that. Links in the description for my other sites and socials. Our next stream is going to be on Friday. I think we're going to do some more Ace Attorney. That is the current plan. We'll see what happens. I will be posting the stream in advance based on what we're going to do. So again, I hope to see you next time, and I hope everybody has a good night. Goodbye, everyone.